Welcome everyone. We apologize about the delay. We apologize about the delay. Hope everyone is doing good. We're here with our second session. We have Dr. Tanya Rosta and to present it for us today, fellow lecturer at the Amina Center for Entrepreneurship and Development and a senior science manager at Amazon Alexa AI. Tanya received a PhD in electrical engineering and computer science from UC Berkeley. She's a master of financial engineering from Haas Business School, UC Berkeley, and master in statistics from UC Berkeley as well. She also received a master's in electrical engineering and computer science from UC Berkeley. Dr. Tanya is focused on building machine learning systems in finance and high tech. She provides technical leadership for teams of scientists and engineers, and her core expertise in general is in machine learning, natural language processing, and statistics. So the focus of today's talk is going to be transforming the future of e-commerce. We hope it's very informative. We hope that you will enjoy the presentation. And yeah, Professor, if you may go ahead and take the lead.
Okay, thank you for the introduction. Sorry, I'm not coming on video, just trying to save bandwidth since it's very unpredictable. So today we're going to kind of do a very, I would say, high-level discussion of how large language models are going to impact e-commerce. But before we get started, I kind of wanted to go through what e-commerce really is, because I think, at least for myself, when I talk about e-commerce, I always think about, say Amazon or Walmart or, big businesses selling to individuals. But in reality, there are different business models. And as you can see, these are kind of the 5 high-level categories. So you can have business to consumer, business to business, business to government, consumer to consumer, which is more like individuals, and consumer to businesses. Now, what I'm going to discuss today probably can, be applied to all of these business models, but I'm specifically, when I talk, I'm mostly focusing on the business to consumer, kind of like the retail, if you will. Now, in terms of why e-commerce is an interesting segment to even think about or try to see how the new advances in machine learning can impact it, it helps to look at the market size. If you look here, this is just a prediction of how much the market size is going to change in the next 4 years. And if you look, it's close to 12 trillion, basically, which is a huge number. And this is on the global scale, not just US. And if you look, basically the largest market is actually Asia Pacific, which, it could, it does somewhat make sense, because if you think about it, like, more like US and probably Europe have had kind of they're at their saturation point to some extent in terms of e-commerce, and probably Asia Pacific is where the majority of growth is. And as you can see, some of these key players are names that we all know about, like Alibaba, Amazon, well, Costco in US is big, Apple, etc. Now, just for the next year, if we look, there's basically going to be about 6 trillion growth in e-commerce in general. And at least based on these numbers that you can see, majority of it is going to be in home appliance, followed by fashion products. But if any company wants to even get a slice of this pie of this, huge growth, they really need to be, in the forefront and kind of stay ahead of the game. And using the LLMs and the technological advances that comes with it is going to be very helpful in terms of being able to capture a large portion of the market. Now, before I even talk about large language models, it's good to understand what a language model is, and it might be something you all know, but just bear with me for a couple of minutes. A language model is what anybody would think about, honestly. It's a model that kind of puts a probability associated with a given word in a sequence. So if you have a sequence of words and you want to see what's the next most likely word in that sentence, that language model is a model that gives the probability to different words. So if you look here in the example, for example, here, the left-hand side, we have Alice painted her house, right? And you want to see what are the options that you can fill in the blank. Now, we have a vocabulary, right, associated with any language. So let's say here, the elements in our vocabulary is brown, beige, red, because, with, etc. It continues. Now, a proper language model would assign probabilities to each of these words in the vocabulary, and then you can pick the one with the highest probability. In this case, it's brown, right? So that is what a language model is. It's just trying to model this conditional probability. Now, in general, there are, kind of two branches of language models. The more, I would say, older versions are statistical-based language models, which are based on n-grams, etc. But the ones in the last few years that are really state-of-the-art are all neural based language model, like neural networks. And even within those, there are different kinds, like you have this fixed window neural network and the recurrent neural network. Now, the recurrent one is really the one that's the basis of a lot of these language models, and is the one that when the transformers came, basically they replaced these recurrent neural networks. Now, large language model is honestly nothing but a language model, a neural network language model that is just very large in size. And the reason they're so popular now is that, well, they perform really well, but before it wasn't even possible to have these in production or use them because they require a lot of computational power. The latency is huge. So with all the latest advancements in chip design, and like very specialized chips for just accelerating these model inferences, now it's possible to actually have these large language models. And just to kind of give you a sense of how big we are talking about, these sizes, as you can see, they're like the small ones are in the 60, 70 billion, and then you have ones that are like 340 billion parameters. So they truly are large. And that's, really why they perform so well. Now, you may, if you're reading the literature, you may also hear the word foundation models. And the way to think about it is foundation models are, people have been using them to some extent interchangeably with large language models, but foundation models kind of are a step further than just the language model because they basically use multimodal data, not just text. And they can be fine-tuned to different downstream tasks. So what that means is, if we look at it here, you can see that in terms of the data, you have multiple modalities. You can have text, images, speech, structured data being like tabular data or knowledge graphs, etc. And you can take all of these data and have the model trained in a self-supervised manner. And once you have that model, then it can be adapted to almost any task. So you don't need a different model for each task. It's just the same one that can be adapted. And that's really where the power of all of these LLMs or foundational models is. And if you look, this is very much similar to the slide I showed about the size of the language models, but it kind of shows you these are language models slash foundation models, actually. But if you look, the less than 100 billion, you have quite a few here. And then, over 100 billion parameters, again, you have quite a lot. You have GPT-3 here. Then you have Google's Palm and GPT-4, no one knows because they haven't disclosed how many parameters they have. Now, you might be wondering why these models are, so popular, because if they're so large, every company cannot actually host one of these or have their own models. So the question is, how are they being so useful to everyone if they're so large and not everybody has the computational and the resources to computational power and resources to have their own models? And that's where this concept of pre-training and fine-tuning comes in. So the pre-training is where I was showing you, you take all the data and do the self-supervised training. And once you have that, then the same model can be taken by anyone, and just with the use of very few data points, or sometimes not even any, you can adapt it to the task that you have. And that's what basically OpenAI is doing. For example, like, they're giving you API access to this big model, and then you can use the API to fine tune for your special task. And that's why they are so powerful, because everybody can now use them without having to basically train and host something this large. Okay. And some of the best ones obviously are GPT-3, 4, Llama T5. But if you're interested, you can look on this website. They have a pretty nice list with explanation of pros and cons of each of these LLMs. Now, with all that background, we can kind of focus on how LLMs are going to help in e-commerce. So the first thing is really customer support. And I would say this is beyond just e-commerce. It's almost in any industry. LLMs can help enhance customer support, because, you've seen all these chatbots or virtual assistants when you go on different websites. And the nice thing is that they are, first of all, available 24/7. So like, they're not closed on a weekend, or they don't go to sleep. So it's a lot easier for people to interact with these chatbots at their own convenience. And also, a lot of times the chatbots are able to answer like the basic questions, or, just find the right answer based on, say, an FAQ corpus they have. But even if they can't answer, one thing is that they're able to at least assess, if they cannot answer, then maybe they want to raise a ticket to, say, an actual person. So they can even do that, so that, once the weekend is over, somebody would get back to the customer. So that whole convenience really helps improve customer satisfaction and helps, attract people. The second part is this personalized shopping experience. And this is really the hottest area, I would say. It has been actually pretty important forever and ever, but now with these LLMs, it's a lot easier to, make the shopping experience personalized. So, these LLMs are able to make recommendations. They can kind of, look at all the past history of purchases for a given customer, look at, say, their social network, if you have that information, and social media, and then send, either text, message, emails for advertisement. Or they can just simply assist, if you're on a website trying to purchase something, you've seen like it says you might be interested in blah, blah, blah. That blah, blah, blah is what, LLM can help you with. And they actually can, or in some cases, they've actually helped basically boost the conversion rate online by about 100%, which basically translates into like improving the amount of average order price by a customer by 3%. So you can see that that's quite a bit of actually value they can add just by this personalization. And they obviously use a lot of different channels and data to kind of personalize their recommendations. And the more a platform has these different customer data, the better the personalization is. So that's why one of the biggest challenges for a lot of e-commerce sites is trying to consolidate all the scattered information they have from different parts of their system for a customer in one place so that the LLM can actually use that. The next piece is content creation. This one is also a favorite application in e-commerce because LLMs can actually take in, say, all the information about different products, like, even catalogs, and then come up with a summary of the product description automatically. They can also look at, say, the reviews that customers have put in for a product and then come up with, just bullet points of pros and cons and a summary of the reviews, which is very helpful, right? Because let's say you're looking at a product that has, 1,000 reviews. Some have a lot more than that, right? You're not going to be able to look at all thousands of them. So if you see the pros and cons based on these reviews, it's very helpful. And in fact, right now, if you look on Amazon's shopping site, you see they have that on top for the products. It's kind of like a condensed version of the review. LLMs can also generate images based on some description. So, say the product image doesn't look as great as it should. They can generate images that are more pertinent to the product and look better. And the last one is search engine optimization. And this is actually a very interesting application, in my opinion. In case you don't know what search engine optimization is basically the process that optimizes the website's technical configuration, meaning that when people, like, say on Google, search for something and Google is trying to find the website to direct them. Hello? Oh. So, Google basically needs some keywords for each website to be able to direct the query to them. So the search engine optimization is basically the process that tries to figure out what are the most relevant and popular search queries, and then they can kind of massage and adapt their content, the site's content, to those queries so that it's easier to be discovered by search engines. So LLMs can actually do a great job there because they can kind of analyze different queries and come up, with suggestions of how to optimize the content to make them more discoverable. Another application is market research, which is actually a very large application, I would say, because market research pretty much spans every aspect of e-commerce, right? Because you kind of want to be able to demand, forecast the sales and demand for different products. You want to look at, your competitors and analyze, where you stand. You can look at your inventory, basically, and forecast how much you need to stock up for different products. Sentiment analysis is trying to kind of understand people's view of certain products or certain companies that could, help with your strategy. And also trend prediction, like say, from the social media, figuring out what's the latest trend and what you should basically be chasing. And it's a very, very large, basically application, I would say, and LLMs are really good at least helping with market research. I'm not going to say they can do everything that a human can do, but they can do quite a bit of that research if you give them the right kind of data. And in fact, there was a recent kind of a research paper that looked at how you could use GPT for market research, like for different areas of market research, and how accurate the results of GPT was. So it's a pretty interesting read. So as you can see, there are, and these were just a few, I would say the most important applications. There are obviously different ones that I didn't mention, but all of them essentially help the bottom line for the business, right? Because they help reduce the costs, whether it is having a lot of basically customer support people, like you don't need as many. If you have to create content, you don't have to pay people. It's, you can use the LLM. Through personalization, you can basically have increased revenue. And, a lot of things that, require scaling, you can achieve that by using LLMs. And also, improving your competitive advantage because, if you can do the market research and kind of get ahead of the curve, it basically helps you make you a leader in the market. And of course, there's no free lunch in this world, so every positive comes with a negative. And the negative impact, the most obvious one is job displacement, because a lot of the low-level tasks that people were hired for are now impacted. But at the same time, I mean, it's a completely different talk and discussion, but in the long run, they are going to create different types of jobs. So in the immediate term, it's going to affect people, but in the long run, probably the jobs are actually going to grow. And then we have all these privacy concerns, right? Because the models themselves have been trained on like a lot of data that has come from the web. And, a lot of that data is personal data, copyrighted data. So there's a lot of privacy concerns that people have brought up. Okay. And in terms of challenges, I mentioned a couple of the technical challenges, but one of the biggest ones actually is this concept of hallucination. And hallucination is when the large language model gives you a response very confidently, but it's completely wrong, and obviously doesn't know that it's wrong. So actually, people who use ChatGPT to answer their homework questions should be very cognizant of that, because not every answer you get from ChatGPT is correct. You might not want to just copy paste it in your homework. It's also not easy to do the continuous improvement because these are large models. So, every time you want to improve, if you have to do the pre-training again, that's a lot of work. So that's another issue. And then trying to integrate it with your existing system, which I would say this is actually not a small area. It's quite difficult when you have a system that's working, trying to change it so that it can work with these LLMs. Because you basically have to change all the plumbing and the infrastructure. So it's very cumbersome, I would say. And then the ethical concerns is, I just mentioned, privacy. And also the bias, right? Because as we all know, since these models have been kind of trained on data from the web, and we know the data is a lot of times biased either by gender, like, I don't know, nationality, religion. These large language models have that inherent bias, so we have to be aware of that. And also, issues with, say, copyright, because even when, say, the large language model is creating a product description or it creates an image, right? It's using what it has gathered from its training, like from the knowledge that it has gathered. And it's quite likely that it's going to use some content that is copyrighted. So then all these questions arise that, okay, who's the owner of that content? Is it really the original person, or is it LLM, etc.? So there are a lot of these questions that no one has completely hashed out. But at the end of the day, we are going to use LLMs or these foundation models, and they're becoming more and more popular in e-commerce, right? I mean, we're seeing a lot of that already in the virtual shopping assistants. In fact, I think I read somewhere that IKEA's app kind of uses one of these virtual assistants to help you figure out how you can decorate your room or how things look in the room, like kind of in an interactive way. So a lot of these big e-commerce companies are already using LLMs under the hood for different purposes. And there's only really one path forward, which is, just use them, but, make sure that you're aware of the issues that also come with LLMs, and not just use them without realizing that there could be some problems. So in conclusion, as you saw, the e-commerce has a huge market size, global market size, and it's going to just grow in size in the next 4 years alone by 27%. So to capture at least a portion of that market, the companies really need to use these technological advances to be able to, attract customers, keep their customers, improve the conversion rate, and also kind of have a competitive advantage in the market. And that is the end of my talk. So I'm happy to answer any questions, and thank you for your time.